Hey guys and girls, I'm inside Hyde Park Barracks, one of the early buildings that was built in Sydney to house the convicts. And I'm just going to give you a quick tour inside this building. It's unbelievable, the history of this place. And it was built in 1819 and it housed convicts up until 1848. The actual convict transportation from the colonies, English and Irish, over in England and Ireland, stopped in 1840 when the free settlers were coming out. More free settlers at that stage, but it housed convicts up until 1848. So the first room I'm going to go into is show you one of the rooms where the convicts slept in their hammocks. It's all original. And Sydney was modern Sydney, or early Sydney, the early buildings, certainly the first 50 say to 100 years of modern Australia being built was built by the convicts, you know, on road gangs and chain gangs and in quarries and how they survived it and slept in these barbaric conditions, and then had to go out and work, you know, 15, 16-hour days, and a lot of them in chains, depending upon what type of crimes you'd done. Was brutality at its very worst. And some of these early convicts that came out on the ships were, you know, like 16 and 17-year-old kids that had been given life for stealing, like, you know, a handkerchief or a loaf of bread. A lot of them had been given death penalties that then got reduced to life just for basic theft, just to, you know, survive back in England and Ireland. So it was very, very brutal in the early days of this country. And then of course the brutality towards the Aboriginal people, you know, the wars and the massacres that went on in the early days between the clash of cultures between the Indigenous and the Europeans. Okay, so I'm just going to pause now and go downstairs and show you another room, and we'll continue on. This next room I'm going to show you just quickly is how the convicts were building Sydney in the early days, and there's some brilliant, getting around some people, brilliant models here which I'll show you of what was happening in the early days. There's a model of Hyde Park Barracks being built, and straight across from Hyde Park Barracks was Sydney's first church, St James Church, and this is all being built by the early prisoners, the convicts. This shows you here of the road, New South Head Road, or Old South Head Road actually. It's old New South Head Road up to South Head, when they were building that road down to Watson's Bay. And you can see the lighthouse there, the lighthouse on South Head, which is still there today, which is the oldest lighthouse in the country. And a lot of the roads they were building over Aboriginal tracks and Aboriginal land. So you can imagine in the early days, the escalation of the anger that was happening between the two cultures. build early Sydney, obviously they needed raw materials, wood and shell to build the bricks and what have you. So a lot of the convicts were working down on the harbour in the various harbour inlets to get the shell they needed to mix it in to get the concrete to build all the buildings. So they were the hours they spent just clawing shell off rocks and in chains and what have you. You can't imagine how they actually did it, but that's what happened in the early days of colonisation. And of course, as this was going on, as the development was expanding, it was expanding into other Aboriginal lands and other Aboriginal tribes, and creating more hostility between the settlers, the convicts, and the indigenous tribes. So I'll just leave this room now and just put it on pause, and I'll come back to you in a couple of secs. We'll go and look into one of the other rooms. I've just come down to the second floor of the building. I'm going to take you into a room called the World of Pain, which just shows you the brutality that was going on in the early days of this country. And public floggings were part of the norm. You can see here the whips that were used, and a lot of the time they were getting up to 50 lashes until they passed out or severe bleeding. The chains they put the convicts into to work in, with the chain gangs working on the roads and the quarries and down on the harbour sites to get the shell. What happened though, which was a sort of a good story, was amongst the brutality that was going on at the time, there were pardons starting to be given to the convicts depending upon what type of crimes you'd done, and a lot of the convicts then became free settlers themselves, and then were able to gain land and form their own businesses and to be free people. So that was a positive, but it was sort of very limited in the early days, but became more prevalent as the years went on, as the colony started to expand and become more advanced and built. You can see there, that's another the chains that they were using. And the convicts worked in these chains, they slept in these chains. You know, upstairs where I just showed you the barracks, where they slept in some of those hammocks there. You know, they were rat-infested rooms where they were getting bitten all night by the rats, and just horrible existence. And there was obviously a lot of prisoners tried to escape. Why wouldn't you? You know, and the escapees became the bush rangers, and then, you know, to survive they started doing, you know, criminal activity to the free settlers and all that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of stuff going down in the early days. And of course, as the colony was expanding into the western lands of New South Wales, the impact it was having on the Aboriginal tribes. So I'll just take you into this room and they give you a history. While you're doing this tour, you've got headphones on and they're giving you a history of what actually happened. It's absolutely wonderful how they've done it. And this little room shows you about a tribe up in northern New South Wales called the Warriga, I think they're called. Excuse me, I've just forgotten it. But they were involved in a very heavy massacre. The settlers and convicts, there was a war that broke out as the settlers and the convicts were encroaching on the tribal lands. The Aboriginal tribes up there in northern New South Wales retaliated, and then they were set upon by the settlers and convicts, and that was in the 1830s, northern New South Wales massacres, and it was the first time that under the colonisation in the colony that white people got tried by the courts and got sentenced to death for murdering Aboriginal people. So up until then, it was pretty much free reign. If a Indigenous person had lost their life through brutal means or murder or war, they weren't by a European or by a European white person, settler or convict. They weren't being tried through the court system. So there you go. So just go back outside. So this is the original Hyde Park Barracks, where it all happened here originally. All the brutality, the labour they needed to build the colony. It all come out of this building. So I highly recommend a tour of this place. Come into Sydney. The tour goes for about an hour. As I said, you've got the headphones on, and it gives you complete history of the place. I'll just go downstairs, and I'll just pause now and go downstairs and show you the outside building and to finish. Here we go, just outside now. There's the building I've shown you. I'll just go back here a bit and give you a better look. And this is where it basically all started. Modern Australia was being built. So we have to accept our past. Obviously, when you think about it, you've got poor people that were shipped out here. A lot of them were just kids, middle teens, 16, 17-year-old kids that were shipped out here for doing very minor crimes, that were, spending their life out here, right across the other side of the world, and the brutality they went through under the British rule. And then, of course, we've had the brutality that was then, dished out to our Indigenous people, First Nations people that have been here for thousands of years. And so it wouldn't have been a very, very pleasant place to be in the early days. But as time's gone on, out of a horrible situation, and still a lot of, horrible things going on at the moment. But look, at the end of the day, we have built a modern nation, modern Australia, into a great country where we can all be proud of it, through the building, through those early days of settlement. So, yeah, highly recommend you coming in and having a look. It'll take you about an hour. You put the headphones on and just go through. It's absolutely brilliant. So get in here, spend a couple of hours, and absolutely fascinating. Thanks, guys.